Every Thanksgiving, my family and I participate in a meal in our local community that invites in our unsheltered community together. It's about 300 people, and about 6 years ago, my wife and I sat down at a table with our whole family. I've got 4 kids, 15, 11, 10, and 7. That's a lot, yes, got it. In that meal, we met my friend Kenny. My friend Kenny was great. Kenny was kind, Kenny was sweet, Kenny became a good friend of my kids. We would see Kenny, who was unsheltered, throughout the neighborhood. Kenny became part of our church's park out program, where we were doing people who were living in their cars could stay in our parking lot. Kenny, along the way, ended up with a liver disease. So Kenny had to go to the hospital. When Kenny came out, he got discharged from the hospital. He wasn't allowed to stay there. Kenny ended up trying to figure out how to recover with his colostomy bag and his medical systems in our church parking lot while living in a minivan where we created a plywood kind of deck to make that work for him in the minivan. I did Kenny's memorial about 3 years ago. And that was part of me, I think, and my family saying, we can do better. This isn't the way that Kenny's life should have finished. Kenny should have had better, Kenny should have had a chance. That project you see a picture of has 10 medical respite beds in it now for people who are exactly like Kenny, who need to recover from a surgery in a home. What we do and what we want to talk about today is how do we provide that housing faster? And it takes too long today to get our friends who are unsheltered, who are without a home, off the streets and into a home. We need to cut that construction time in half. We need to build these things in less than a year. The average, I don't know where we're at anymore, in Alameda County, where I'm from, the average time it takes for a podium build, Eden housing project, if you're being generous, is between 4 and 6 years. We were able to build these 34 in 10 months. That's something we as the building industry have to pay attention to and have to put into practice. Just some talk about the idea of the crisis that we're in. I think sometimes we like to put our head in the sand around what's happening with our unsheltered community. In the Bay Area here, we have now risen to a total of 35,000 people will be on the streets tonight. Tonight, if you walk through the streets of San Francisco, you will be forced to walk over many of them. That is unacceptable, and this kind of industry, if you will, the building industry, should be leading this charge. We are the ones who know how to build housing better, know how to build it more creatively, more cost efficiently, and how to multiply that work. In Alameda County, in my county, those numbers have risen every year for the last 22%, and is planning on going up from there. In Contra Costa County, Danville, San Ramon, Walnut Creek, 35%. Kind of debunking some myths of why this is important. 90% of those 35,000 want to be inside. They want to come into a home where they can lock the door. They want to come into a place where they can recover from their surgeries. They want to come into a place with a heater. They want to come into a place that's safe so they can turn off the fight or flight that exists on the streets. Over and over again, it's been proven, numerous different studies, that a safe, secure home will drastically reduce the mental health issues that people are suffering from, the drug addiction issues, the alcohol addiction issues, which are almost always caused in a formula of what's happening on the streets, plus some previous life experience. 80% of our unsheltered population have been living in this community for a year or more. And of that 80%, 50% have been there for 10 years or more. These are our people, our community. They went to our high schools. They played sports locally. They did the same things you and I did. In this city, the one you're in right now, over 300 people passed away in the last 12 months on the streets. The cold hard fact, literally, is that someone will die tonight because they don't have a home. We cannot wait 4 to 6 years for the housing pipeline anymore. This is my friend on the left is Patricia. Patricia was one of our first tiny home village, which we'll hear more about here in a second. Patricia was working at this time as an in-care home provider for seniors in our community. She was living in her car She had a membership at 24-Hour Fitness, which is where she would shower in the morning before she went to work. On the right-hand side, that's Betty and JoJo. They lived in one of our initial tiny homes as well. Betty and JoJo were previously living in their car, kind of an older version of a Jeep. We were able to get Betty and JoJo into a home. Their stories are not unique. This is not like, wow, look, quote, this is common story to what we're talking about. I've become more convinced in doing this for the last 7 years or so that if we don't do everything we can, everybody here at this conference, from builders, it's so simple in 1 second. Like the idea of how you end homelessness is by building homes. That's it. This is the community that should be leading that charge. We don't do everything we can within our own resources, power, and strength to build housing of all the different versions on the continuum. We are literally condemning people to die on our streets. We cannot get through the mental health issues, the addiction issues, the economic trauma, the medical trauma without a home. To ask somebody to get well and then we can do a home is completely illogical. This is from Tamika Moss from All Home. Bay Area governments and nonprofits, we have played deep defense on homelessness during the pandemic. And we have more or less held the line. One might argue that increasing by 9% is not holding the line. But now we need to go on offense. We need to end the suffering on our streets. This is possible, and it's possible much faster due to some of the techniques that we're going to share with you. So a quick story of our San Leandro project before I turn it over to Ed, who was the general contractor on that, to go into more detail on how. The San Leandro project emerged from the First Pres project. This is 34 units of housing, 10 of which were medical respite, accessible, the other 24 of which it is a navigation center currently, which has some issues in it, but still providing housing. And it was built, it was built as a county project from start to finish. It took us under 11 months to get those 34 units done, from design to residency. And even that, we can have a little sidebar later about how long that took with some of the inspections. We could have got that done in 8 months, and we had some more helpful pieces of that puzzle. I'm going to show you a quick video about the innovative construction style that we did. We essentially set up a pop-up factory right there in the parking lot that allowed us to do the site build and the unit build concurrently, cutting our construction time in half. Welcome to one of our projects here in San Leandro that we're working on. I'm right here at the door of one of the units that we have created. It's 224 square feet. It's designed to be handicapped accessible. At this project that we're on here, there's going to be 10 of these and then 24 more of what we call our basic unit, which is a bit smaller. But I'm excited to show you this one. I think it turned out beautifully. So come on in, let me show you. If you come on in, you can take a look at what we would call the kitchen space. Mini fridge, mini freezer, stove top, microwave, sink. Again, this unit is designed to be for someone who might be in a wheelchair, so there's plenty of turnaround space. We really wanted to design units that were humanizing. As Firm Foundation, what we're trying to do is really just like miniaturize all the same amenities that we have in our home as much as possible. So you're gonna find showers and toilets, and come on in, I want you to see the bathroom. Architect team that we worked with on this project did a really incredible job, and we are learning as we go for every project. So every time we get a chance to design again, I think we're making improvements. Also, HVAC system, a kind of dresser that goes in here with a TV on top of it, and then a bed. Currently we have one in here that converts to a futon, but also enough space for a solid double bed right in there. We just got a chance to tour the unit here at our project in San Leandro, but I wanted to also show you a bit of how these units are being constructed. It's very unique and I think pretty innovative. These are factory-built, California HCD approved units. We were able to set up a temporary factory. We're here in the parking lot on this project. These units are being constructed at the same time the site development is happening right over here. When the units get to a certain point, we crane them from here, we move them onto that
kind of site, and that again is helping us to reduce construction time. So on this project, we broke ground for these units late October and are currently scheduled to finish early July for 34 of these units. But it also is able to help us to do it at about 1/5 of the cost of a comparable unit in a permanent affordable housing structure.
And with that, Ed Wood, come on and tell about the hows of that.
Thanks, Jake. You know, as you saw in that video, we really felt like this was a really innovative solution to a problem that we've really seen as a significant problem in the Bay Area, obviously. And we knew that it was vitally important to get the project done as soon as possible, because each day that goes by, it's another night some mess on the street. So we were really trying to think outside the box of what's innovative solutions to speed up the construction process. And what we did, as Jake said earlier, was that we established a pop-up factory on site that is governed by the state HCD and inspected by a third-party agency. And that allowed us to have this factory adjacent to the build site, and it allowed us to do the actual construction of the work simultaneous and concurrent with the build of the site, or the build of the unit. So, I mean, historically, you'll know that you have to do all the site work, you have to do the joint trench, you have the foundations, and then you can start building the structure. Well, this allowed us to do both at the same time. So as soon as the foundations are ready, we were just able to crane the units onto the foundations, and that it did. It cut our build time in half. So one of the things we thought in setting off to this process is we thought, creating a pop-up factory is going to be an arduous process. It's going to take a long time, but we found that actually it was relatively easy. The state HCD has a partners that have done this a number of times now, and we basically there's a template that you can create or modify that walks through the whole QA/QC process. Then they have inspectors that show up and do the inspection process just as if the local jurisdiction would. So you have one inspection agency that does the inspections of the units themselves, concurrent, and then you have the local jurisdiction that does the inspections of the site. So there's some complexity with navigating two different inspection agencies, but we found that it was surprisingly simple, and we were very pleased with it, with how the outcome of that. The benefit of having the factory on site was that it basically eliminated transportation costs. We didn't have to have a factory off site somewhere, get it onto a truck, then transport it to the site, and then offload it. We basically just had a crane on site that would pick it up from the factory and set it into the construction zone. So it was virtually eliminated all transportation costs. So that was something that was very beneficial for us. There is some slight variations in the units, so the factory has to account for the fact that there's two different style of units, but that wasn't really a big issue. The other benefit, one of the things is on the fact that the factory is on site. You think about, well, what happens when you remove the factory? What is a remnant? Basically it's eliminated. There's no evidence of factory being on site after we're done. So this was the build site. On most sites it's pretty unique. Every site has its own challenges, but trying to fit 28 units in this little tight area was challenging. But this was the actual overlay of the plan. You can see down in the lower left is where the factory was established. This is how we set up the factory, and then the units were placed on the upper right. So the crane kind of sat in between those two sites and would pick it up and set them back down. So it was a very innovative thing. So crane day, these were always a big day at the site. At this point, the units are about 90% complete. We can't finish up the siding because the units have to be joined to the foundation. So Simpson has straps that allow us to fasten those down. So we have to set the units on the foundation, and then we can secure them to the foundation, and then we can finish up the siding. And then we also did the roofing after this at that point, so that we could, because these units were, if you saw some of the photos, we paired them together and did them in groups of 4. So we did the roofing all as one unit, and we did the siding and then painted everything. So the other innovative thing on this unit was that traditionally when you crane something like this, you have to sling around the entire unit, and that kind of puts some awkward strain on the eaves and such. We engineered some pick points into the units that go all the way down through to the foundation of the unit that allows that to just pick straight up and set down. It makes the craning process very quick and rigging really easy. So this was the finished site. You can see in the lower left, it's just a parking lot again. It ended up looking, there's no evidence of that. We had some containers on site for storage of material and whatnot, and that ended up turning out really well. The interior of the units, as you saw in the video, they're surprisingly spacious, and what I feel is that these units are able to provide dignity and some security for our friends that are experiencing homelessness. So I think that's
it.
Yeah.
Thanks, Ed. Just doing some basic tax credit commission information. The average unhoused shelter project, affordable housing project, it's about $630,000 per unit in Alameda County, with a 5 to 7 year project timeline. Depending on who and how you work with, it might get shortened. And I think we all know some projects have gotten longer than that in their timeline. This project came out even with some pretty massive site issues. We had some pretty massive geotech issues. We had to do some long piping and trench runs to local water and sewer. Even with all of that, it was still $200,000 per unit. We think we're actually less expensive than that on most of our other projects today. Total cost all in, and a 10 to 12 month project timeline. And I don't think we as a community have any choice but to figure out how can we multiply this, how do we find more sites, how do we employ this construction method, not as the only tool, but I think if we're really going to solve this crisis that we're in, if we're really going to get 35,000 people off the streets, you have to use multiple tools to solve this problem, and this is just one of them that we wanted to share with you. So.